Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system.
Donald Trump was sentenced to no punishment yesterday in the fake case about the bookkeeping description of a payment to the extortionist, Stormy Daniels, many, many years ago. This latest outrage allows the Democrats and insurrectionists of our country to call him the convicted felon president of the United States before the world in the key initial days of his second presidency. Does it matter? I don't think so anymore. There will be more of this from them. The special prosecutor, appointed by those pulling the puppet strings on Joe Biden, will have the J6 part of his fabricated special prosecutor's report released publicly by Merrick Garland for a further propaganda barrage. They are very much like captive monkeys in a pen throwing you know what. Smith's classified documents investigation will not be released immediately, but it will be leaked incessantly to the occupation's propaganda machinery. The J6 investigation, however, will be publicly released, so that's another attempted smear job by the captive monkeys. So essentially, Biden is also doing everything he can to lay landmines in front of Trump ahead of Trump assuming the presidency. He's taken offshore waters, almost all of them, out of oil and gas production and any further exploration. He has put 1 million potential deportees under protective order as of yesterday, preventing their deportation. There are similar efforts underway to block all of Trump's efforts towards peace. But none of that will matter ultimately. The nation spoke loudly on November 5th. They want change, massive change, to a regime which is failing in every single respect. The Trump transition is moving on this most successfully, despite the efforts of Biden et al. To fight it. Last week, for example, Mike Waltz, who will head the National Security Council, assured people that every extant intelligence community person assigned to the National Security Council would leave as of January 20th, and Trump designees from the agencies will be put in their place. That shows you an enormous preparation by the transition team. That was something which really plagued the first Trump administration, as these intelligence community designees, like Eric Ciaramella and Alexander Vindman, the major figures in the first Trump impeachment, deliberately undermined the president from right inside the White House. As if to underscore that November 5th mandate, Los Angeles, as of this morning, is in flames. Uncontrolled wildfires, which are destroying tens of thousands of buildings and displacing hundreds of thousands of people and killing lots of people. Now, the Chinese used to experience massive floods. When the floods came and when they were not addressed, it seemed to them as if nature itself was telling them that their rulers were incompetent to rule, that they had lost the mandate of heaven itself. Put more crudely, when Gavin Newsom announced that he was engaged in Trump-proofing California, I guess he neglected to inform the people that that meant he was simply going to allow the whole state to burn. That is not an exaggeration. These fires are still out of control and expanding, and so far California officials act like clowns when engineers and competent leaders and the National Guard are needed immediately. Fires, earthquakes, Santa Ana winds, and cyclical droughts have been in California forever. They are not the result of climate change. They are part of what happens in living in this particular geographic location on the North American continent. In previous governments, under Governor Pat Brown, for example, an entire water management system adequate to the population at that point was built, allowing California agriculture to flourish in what once was dried out land. At the same time, There were plans for major water management projects to ensure that not only the Western United States had adequate water for projected population growth, but the entire area west of the Mississippi could be watered and grow. You see, all of the aquifers which exist in this area have been drawn down by population growth and farming, something, again, which is entirely foreseeable. That plan was called the North American Water and Power Alliance, or NWAPA. It envisioned drawing water down from Canada, which was flowing into the ocean unused, and trapping it for use by humans. My friend Mike Stegler has a post about this on the Promethean Action website. He says in his headline, "Think bigly, why we should buy Canada and Greenland and end the drought in the Southwest," and hits the essentials of what Trump has planned and why Trump's idea about buying Greenland and making Canada a 51st state are not some eccentric fantasy. They are essential for our future security, including the ability to grow our economy and prevent apocalyptic fires. The environmentalist Michael Schellenberger is right when he says the losses of life and property in Los Angeles are the fault of the woke environmental religion embraced by California's politicians and much of the population until very recently. The hydrants which firefighters needed to fight the Pacific Palisades fire were empty. The reservoir, which was supposed to feed them, was offline. Despite the National Weather Service issuing dire warnings about the potentials of the winds and just this fire, the mayor, Karen Bass, was off in Ghana and didn't return until the fires raged beyond control. Governor Newsom says he advance deployed other firefighters from the north. Firefighters say that's nonsense. Newsom cut the fire maintenance budget. Bass cut the firefighting budget so that the firefighters were not equipped to fight this fire, either in manpower or equipment. So now they are claiming that the winds were so strong that nothing could be done. You see, it's climate change. Competent leaders, however, knowing the history, could and would have scripted just this fire occurring. It is a closed system, after all, a system of what is the water capacity, what is the electrical capacity, what are the population dispersions, what is the wildlife like in the area. It is a foreseeable event, and building the capacity to handle it is what being a competent government official is all about. Instead, California embraced wokeness. The vast homeless and drugged criminal population was left to roam, like some primitive medieval mob. You see, they also set fires. When the investigations are done of this, it will turn out to be arson. The state insurance fund is bankrupt. No private insurers will come here, not just because of greed, but because the state's regulations and the risk they perceive in the incompetence of its elected officials make providing insurance a great risk. This will, in all probability, end any chance that Gavin Newsom will become president later on in our lifetimes. Both he and Bass should be recalled by the population. It is a necessary reckoning for the nation as Trump comes into office. The incompetence of these progressive ideological idiots has come home to roost in an apocalyptic firestorm, destroying everything in its path. Now, Donald Trump held a spectacular press conference on Tuesday, which Susan Kokinda covered in depth in her midweek update. At the end of the week, it was announced that Trump and Putin are setting up a meeting. In his presser, Trump said, in essence, that Russia was provoked into the war with Ukraine by the actions of Joe Biden, and I might add the actions of his British controllers in insisting on NATO membership for a nation right on Russia's border and then turning that nation into a hostile force through the coup of 2014 and further NATO actions. Similar peace initiatives are being undertaken by Trump to end the war in the Middle East. Next week, confirmation hearings will start for Trump's nominees in the Senate. The one which we are focusing on is Tulsi Gabbard. She will go before the Senate Intelligence Committee, where the enemy has focused their force. They are focused on her because she is an honest and uncontrolled truth seeker who has fought in actual wars and who, as DNI, will oversee the entire intelligence community and hold the keys to declassification of formerly classified documents. In other words, she holds the keys to the political lifelines to many, many people in Washington, D.C. In a piece I wrote for Promethean Action, I point out that the Senate Intelligence Committee is deeply compromised by the intelligence agencies and played a major part in the war against Donald Trump by these very agencies. Who stepped forward, for example, on that Intelligence Committee when 57 heroes of the intelligence community actually put out the false nonsense that Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian operation? Senator Mark Warner, in justifying his stalling of Gabbard's nomination, said our allies are concerned about her stances. By that, he means the British, who play the major role right now in all U.S. intelligence operations. The evil and incompetent counterinsurgency, counter-nation-state ideology of the British Empire has been fully embraced now by our intelligence community, and Tulsi Gabbard, having operated under it in purposeless forever wars, hates it. Biden's CIA Director Bill Burns recently said candidly that the British and the CIA are so joined at the hip that they simply divide up the areas of the world where the CIA or MI6 will operate primarily, or whether they'll do a joint op, like Ukraine. Now the Republicans are jumping up and down to make Gabbard recant her opposition to their surveillance tools, particularly FISA, in order to get confirmed. Friday's press makes it appear like she has adopted a compromised stance on this now in order to get confirmed, although her quoted statements leave lots of room through her formulation about reauthorizing FISA while enforcing the Fourth Amendment. But this type of BS pressure coming from the Republicans does not bode well for destroying the weaponization of government, and your senators need to hear from you now. Confirm Tulsi. Back up what we voted for on November 5th. Senators, that was the whole of this nation. We voted for a fundamental change. We voted for draining this horrible swamp. Now, tonight in our regular class series, Tony Pappert and Bruce Director will give you a tour of the present political landscape throughout the world, which involves the fall of almost the entire G7 advanced sector governments, not just their defeat here, and the birth of a new spirit exemplified by Donald Trump's triumph in leadership throughout the world. It is a landscape which Lyndon LaRouche, like Prometheus, foresaw. Foresight was, after all, the gift, along with fire, that Prometheus made to mankind. The ability to utilize foresight and to act on it defines whether someone is competent to lead or not. Thus, the raging fire engulfing Los Angeles was entirely predictable. What happened was that the people who were supposed to fight it in reality embraced a religiously fanatic nonsense concerning climate, homelessness, and crime, which has destroyed the state. Join Bruce and Tony tonight. It will refresh your mind and trigger your own insights. I'll see you again on Monday.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com.